Good morning, Francois.
Good morning.
It's nice to be with you again.
I'm pretty excited. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Are you ready?
Oh my word, I'm still chewing on last week. Hey, whoa. We were talking about intimacy and money, and you said intimacy and money is the same thing. And I'm like, what? So I'm still chewing on that, eh?
Yeah, the point of conception, basically.
And that's the thing that you said that kind of stuck with me. You know, it was like intimacy is that, yeah, that place where we manifest, where we you know, things start. You know, and another thing you said that just blew me away is when we vibrate on the same frequency, that is where conception and manifestation happens. Yeah, so I think today I'm going to invite you to take us a little bit deeper into that one.
Okay, so let's get into it. So the key word probably is synchronized union. That is the thing we need to understand. And union is it's an intimate space. We use covenant, we use marriage, we use contracts, we use all of these things to govern union. But union is one thing. We spoke about the difference between submission and surrender. And synchronicity only comes in when everybody is on the same page or on the same wavelength or the same frequency, because then you can actually slot in. It's the same like with when you are changing gears in your car, those that drive manual cars. If you don't synchronize the two gears that need to mesh, you grind the gears. It's a horrible sound. It's not a great feeling, and it's not good for the mechanics of the car. And so it's the same thing. If we want to really work together in spirit, soul, body, or as a community, we really need to synchronize as well, because we can create all the government structures for unity or union. But if we don't synchronize, we are still a kingdom divided. And that actually just becomes a jail sentence. And that's what most people feel in marriages, is when there's no synchronicity. And so the point of conception. So let's start there, because this is an important thing. I want to talk about weaponizing or activating your seed that you're going to sow, because that is the original intent. And original intent is probably one of the most profound but basic steps we can take. If we look at nature, you will see that normally within the bird life, the female goes and sits and watch the male do his dance, do his performance. And she will sit there and she will watch him strat his stuff, basically. How much stamina does he have? How much finesse does he have? Does he build a good home? All of those things. And she will decide, listen, can I synchronize with this other bird in partnership, in union? And if that is not the case, she just goes, listen, you're not on my frequency, on my wavelength. It's not going to work. Next. And so that is the thing that we need to realize. This is all over the animal kingdom, but we kind of just, we slide past it like it's not even there. And so weaponizing or activating your seed is about the original intent before you sow the seed. So it is the action before the transaction. And so that is where the meditation comes in. That is where your conversation with Father comes in. That is where you are actually first in synchronized union with him, because it's spirit first before it can manifest in the earth. Because as soon as you do the transaction, you are conceiving. That is the moment of conception. So what seed are you putting into the ground? What seed are you putting into the womb? And so every time we take action, it is basically conception. And that brings us to, I know we've spoken about this, and I know you said we need to talk about this again. And it's the difference between currency, money, and wealth. And so we know that the power of life and death lies in the tongue. That is your currency. We normally get confused. We say money and currency is the same thing. I want to just split it up. I want to say that currency is your vote. It's your verbal or active influence, one-on-one, person to person. And so how we spend our money, how we transact, will reveal directly what your character and identity is and where you draw that model from. What are you modeling? Are you modeling father, or are you modeling something else? And you will see how people spend that. And so that is the way we talk as well. That is what we see as currency. So it's very one-to-one, it's very direct, it's immediate, but it's normally not that massively impactful. The next one is money.
Okay,
and that
hold
basically
on.
comes down.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. If we're talking,
Yeah.
for me, it's practical. If we're talking about currency, practical between you and me, what is my currency?
It can be anything. So it's the way we talk, and so that's where we come with the love languages. And so if you are going to do proper trading, you are going to market yourself well. It's like going on a date. So we back to intimacy once again. If we sit and we go on a date, we need to, if I want to secure a next date, I need to market myself, and I need to steward the atmosphere in a way that is healthy. So it's that frequency, it's that synchronicity. If you come to my shop and you want to exchange currency for goods that I have, and I don't like your vibe, I don't like the bargain you're trying to drive, all of that, I'm just going to say no. The transaction is not on. We're not trading. And so it's the same principle. It's the same thing. Where you've got it's your vote, it's your voice. It's like literally as simple as that. And if you talk in a bad way, if you don't use good language, it's almost body language is also a language. It's actually the biggest part of it. So all of that becomes something you are ready to sow. And are you positioning yourself to basically sow that into somebody else's life? And if we take the scripture that says, love your neighbor like yourself, that is a transaction that Father is saying equally, or trade in equal worth and equal value. When you are speaking into someone's life, trade in a way that they would be able to receive that, and so that they would also equally want to bless you. It's the same thing with a curse. If somebody curses you, don't give them a curse back, give them a blessing, because what is in return after that transaction? A blessing, because a blessing always calls forth a blessing. And so it is our ability to transact and change the frequency into a synchronicity, weaponizing it, activating it in a way that is beneficial in accordance with our relationship with Father, and for what we want to manifest in this dimension. And so it all comes down to, what do you want to manifest? Are you positioning yourself for that manifestation? And so verbally is the easiest way. Scripture says, put a guard in front of your mouth. Why? Because it's so important. The power of life and death lies in the tongue. And so that's just the first one.
Yeah. Sorry, I want to jump in there, but I'm just thinking that, if you have an eye on social media at the moment, you can kind of see the currency of people in the way they comment on certain things. And that is, and that is like, whoa, you can kind of pick up on what is going on the other side. So that was just a picture now for me to kind of bring that to a place where we can pick up on what is the currency. And sometimes you will step in, you will step into a place where somebody do not value your currency or what you bring into this place. Anyway, so that for me is, it's actually who we are and what we bring to the table. That is exactly our currency. Yeah. Anyway,
it's a good practical point you're making, because any form of media, the word entertainment actually in the original root form of the Latin comes down to occupy your time. Now, we've spoken about time and energy. If something occupies your time, you are transacting all the time. And so as soon as you get onto any entertainment or social media platform, because the question is, why do you go there? Most people just go there for entertainment. They don't go there for too much business. And so that is a moment where you need to realize that they are transacting towards you. And if you sit still, just go into your quiet space, just relax, go into rest, you will quickly feel what that frequency is. Is that frequency good for you? Is that frequency not good for you? What is that frequency triggering? Because they've weaponized or activated their seed that they're sowing. And then you need to make a decision. Am I going to synchronize to that frequency? am I going to participate with this? Because as soon as you participate, you conceive. Then that thing takes conception in your life, and there's something is birthed. And then you need to manage that. We need to realize as soon as we conceive something, we need to father that thing into maturity. You can't just abort. Abortion is not the way Father does creation. You can always, like he says, you can always change something for his good. You will always use anything to make your life good. But we need to learn to steward well. And so in that moment, you've got an option to either synchronize with it or not. Or the way you participate in a conversation on social media is you basically extending your frequency into that space. And so you can decide, how are you going to extend that frequency? And they might not recognize the gold or the rubies that you are exchanging with, because they are only used to paper money. And so even though your seed is worth more, it doesn't necessarily mean they will recognize it. And that comes to the scripture that says, don't put your pearls before swine, because they will trample it. They cannot recognize what it truly is in value. And so we need to be, it's intimate stuff. You don't share your intimate value just with anyone or everyone. You want to share that with people you truly know will value it, because that means it will take conception or be birthed into a reality, into manifestation in their lives. Otherwise, it's just time wasted. And we want to steward our time and energy well. So it's the easiest one is the vocalization, and that's with anything that we basically communicate with. But it's a very powerful one, and it's the first one we need to learn to steward, because if we move on to the next one, which is money, which is actually trading floors, which is business or business principles, now it becomes a position where you are not just one-to-one communicating, you are now the owner of a business, which means you reside in a managerial capacity or ownership capacity over many people. So now you've got a kingdom below you. And that means that you need to completely shift your energy, not thinking that it's just a one-to-one. It's now people's lives and their families that you've got under you. And the way you weaponize or activate your seed in that moment will take conception not only in their lives, but in their families' lives, because you are transacting currency into their lives, because they are employed by you. And so they come under you in a trading floor position. And that means you are now stewarding a community. And so it is a much heavier, much broader situation. And that's why a father is very strict with the parable of the talents, where he says, listen, if you waste it, I'm going to take it away and give it to somebody else who stewards it well. And so the trading floor resembles faith without action is dead works. But if you take action, because dead works is not conceiving properly, it's basically stillborns. Faith with action is life. And so it is about us being convicted, because that is the root word of faith in the Greek. If we are convicted about what we are going to do in expectation of what Father's put in our hearts, then we're going to build a kingdom in accordance to his blueprint, accordance to his scroll for our lives. And then we're going to impact the community in exactly the same way. And so it's important that you as a king then position yourself well, because you are now leading a kingdom, a people into a position of either life or destruction. And so that is the trading force. That is money. So money is why it's a larger, more solid capacity. And from there, if you do a good stewardship, and so now just look at the trend here for intimacy. Intimacy, if we look at dating, the first position is you go on a date, you secure the next date, and maybe you secure an engagement, all of that, or one-to-one. As soon as you get married, which is the trading floor now, which is where conception takes place, you build a kingdom underneath you, which is your offspring. And if you do that well, the next scripture that comes up is a good man or a good father leaves an inheritance for his children's children, and that is the word wealth. And so wealth is your ability to steward and store time and energy in a way that the generations to come will benefit from it. So now you are a grandfather. And so this is the ladder of intimacy climbing from individuals going to a family, going to a generational family or generations. And so now wealth is simply just your generational influence, your networking influence, your community influence is now more than just your family. It's now probably a province or a state. And so it becomes much bigger, much larger. And so your ability to steward that into a way that your children's children will still run from it means that you father well. Because now you're spending your time and energy to teach them the principles of how to speak, how to weaponize the seed, how to steward that on a trading floor, and then to bring it back into fathering. Because if a generation is never fathered, we see them spend that resources within one generation so that their children have to start from the beginning. And that is not being a good father. If you steward your wealth in that way, it means you were never a father, you were just a good businessman. But if you steward your wealth in a way where your children's children understand the richness, the wealth, the promise, all of that is within that seed that you've captured for them, then they understand the true value of it and they value it as such. And it's not bull before swines. It is those that recognize the true worth of the seed that they have, and they will build upon that platform. And so that actually leads us into honor, and that's a whole episode on its own. So we need to definitely catch on to that. But that's more or less currency, money, and wealth in a nutshell.
Yeah, once again, blown away. I'm trying to just in my mind try to get it to a practical. If I have to explain this to somebody else, if I have to explain, say, listen, this is so the currency part, I think I've got that now. We are trading currency when I walk into a room. And then what is so beautiful is now the way that you've explained it, it's kind of the dating thing. So now we are getting married. That is the place where there is conception. That is the place of manifestation. That is the place where money starts to come into my life. That's when I have a job and I get paid for it. That is the place where where money is starting to come in, to manifest. And then if I understand you correctly, wealth is then kind of the next step where I almost want to go past just living, but that is the place where I bring up my children. That is the place where I feed my family. That's the place where I start saving and investing and making plans for the future, which is not just today. And that is when we start to, that is when the idea of finance and the idea of money becomes wealth. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. And so it is important that you then also understand your scroll, your blueprint, because if you're going to start business, you're going to also start allocating certain amount of funds for the future to make that blueprint visible, to manifest it. Because now you're not understanding your own blueprint, you're understanding your family, your generational lines blueprint. So you're looking beyond. And so your wealth becomes the point where you've started buying buildings, you've started buying tools, you've allocated resources for things that will promote the blueprint for the generations to come, so that when they get there, they've got an insane foundation to build on. They are just catapulted into their blueprint. It just puts them on the front foot. And so that is why those there are different levels of understanding of the blueprint as well. So as you mature into the different levels of money and wealth, you also need to mature into your conversation and your relationship and intimacy with Father, because he will then reveal to you the way you need to build and the way you need to allocate the resources that you are stewarding well. And so it's always spirit and it's always physical. And in your body, it will always be spirit, soul, body. And so you will replicate that from the heavens into the earth all the time. And so that conversation needs to continuously evolve and mature. And so, yeah, it's a blueprint, it's a plan, but it's not a recipe. Like no dating opportunity has got a recipe to it, but you can learn how to steward the atmosphere to make it a safe space, a good space, for securing a next date or securing an engagement. And the way you speak, if you speak life and you speak with confidence from your identity in Father, then you will create a manifested state of conception, which is synchronized union. And so I think that is, we've basically gone full circle now. So it's very practical, but there's no recipe. And so I can't give you a recipe in such detail. But if you take the principles we've discussed now, you will go a very long way.
And the big thing about all of this, it starts with intimacy with the Father. That is
absolutely,
that is where it starts. Francois,
absolutely.
thank you for today. Once again,
You're
mind
welcome.
blown. So yeah, next time when we connect, I think we're going to talk a little bit about resources, and yeah, we're going to in one of the next episodes, we're also going to speak about honor, like you said. So yeah, I look forward to that. But for now, ciao, see you again.
Bye.
Bye.